Thanks, Alan. And I think I thought Michael got the conversation off to a really excellent start this morning, and I'd like to just key off some of those themes, hopefully, as we go through. But I'd like to cover three main things today, and that is what is the ACCC's role, and Daniel's touched on that. Talk a little bit about the data access models, which is something that Michael mentioned about, where's it best to get the data, and also look a little bit about the forward work program. So how do I change the slides here? Do I have a clicker? Excellent, thank you. So looking first at the ACCC's role, one of the biggest thing that Daniel's mentioned is we have a rule-making responsibility, and that's going to set the rules, the precise obligations of the data holders, who would be in this sector, could be the retailers, it could be AEMO, in the banking sector it'll be the banks, as well as the data recipients, and that's going to be your trusted third-party service providers, some of the people who are wanting to offer the consumer a new service. And I think that highlights one important thing. This is about what obligations do you impose on those actors to give effect to what is a consumer's right, and so that's the really sort of the purpose of the rules. And I think it also, just referring back to the incentives point that Michael mentioned this morning, it's where it's a little bit different to the green button sort of initiative. We're going to impose a law that imposes obligations on these players, and the legislation, which is before Parliament, has really significant fines for failure to comply with the rules. They're the standard ACCC fines, which are a maximum of $10 million, or there's a sort of factor of the benefits or the gains you have from those. So really significant penalties. So the ACCC has a number of other functions. They're up on the board there, but one of them, we will make sure that the people wanting to receive the data meet certain sort of threshold criteria. They have the right insurance, the right security, they're legitimate companies, etc., etc. And we'll run once we run that through that process and give somebody accreditation, we'll enter them onto a register, and we'll give them then a public-private key, which is basically a mechanism for them to identify themselves to other actors in the system, and a way to ensure that data transferred between those actors is transferred in an encrypted or secure way. And one of the other things that we're doing a lot of work on at the moment is building an IT platform to manage the accreditation and this address book. And a couple of the other roles that we have are things that we haven't really gotten too far into at the moment are education to consumers about their new right, working with also with business to understand their obligations and responsibilities. And we're going to work in all these things very closely with Data 61 and the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner. And they're particularly, that's the OAIC, has particularly received funding from the government to provide advice to the Minister on the privacy issues of our rules, and then to provide education to the public around those privacy issues. And then finally, we've got a role, as does the OAIC, in relation to enforcement and dispute resolution. There we go, the big green button. Okay, so now I just thought I'd talk a little bit about the data access models. One of the key decisions for us is going to be, where do consumers go, or their data, their trusted third parties go to receive the consumer's data. And we're very mindful of the work that was done for COAG by the Houston Kemp in their report. And drawing on that work, we think there are 3 separate models that we need to give consideration to, and we're imminently going to publish a consultation paper that discusses those 3 issues, those 3 options, and I'll just discuss them briefly shortly. We're hoping to have about a month of consultation and also hold a public forum as part of that consultation, and we're hoping to publish either this week or next week. That's how imminent that is. The paper will focus on, Daniel mentioned there are 3 things: is the consumer's ability to get rights, the information to themselves, and also to get general product data. We're just going to focus on the 3rd issue, which is the ability for consumers to direct their information be transferred to someone, a trusted third party. Now, time is really flying past. So the 3 models. One is AEMO as a central data holder, which is basically means they hold all the information, and the third party will go to AEMO to obtain that data. The second model is where AEMO might hold some of that data, and other participants, retailers, distributors, whatever, would hold other data, and AEMO would coordinate access in what we're calling a gateway model. And the third model is an economy-wide CDR model, which is where it's sort of analogous to what's happening in the banking sector, which is where the third-party data recipient would need to go to the retailer or the distributor to get the customer's information. And we're going to assess that on the basis of a couple of criteria: the functionality, reliability, security and privacy are 3 key issues. But in addition, as Daniel mentioned, because this is an economy-wide data right, we're concerned that the way the CDR is implemented in the energy sector is able to operate consistently with how it will apply in other sectors. So interoperability and the ability to extend the model beyond the national energy market, electricity market, is also of consideration for us. Now let me turn very quickly to, there we go. Just where we're going in terms of timing. We have said to the COAG Energy Council, and they've noted that we propose that we can implement CDR in the energy sector in the first half of 2020. To do that, we're going to need to reach a position on this as a first step on the data access model over the next month or 2, and we've told the Energy Council we'll go back to them after we do that with a more detailed work program for going forward. Some of the issues which perhaps we can flesh out in the discussion that comes from the data access model are around consent, which is something, again, Michael mentioned this morning. The consent, the relationship that customers have with their retailer or distributor in the energy sector is very, very different to that's applying in other sectors in terms of their digital connection and that sort of thing. There's also an issue about Houston Kemp suggested that authorisation, whereby the data holder goes back to the consumer and says, do you really consent to me giving your information out to this data recipient, which is what's going to apply in the banking sector. Houston Kemp has suggested, well, maybe that doesn't need to apply in the energy sector, so we need to think about that as well. So I will watch the stop sign and stop there and hopefully take up some of those things in questions.